Good day, everyone, and welcome to World's Finest, where we talk about anything and everything comic and genre related. I'm your host, Batman. You guys know me as Lee, and I'm here as always with one of the best co-hosts a guy could ask for, aka Jake. What's going on, Jake?
What's up, guys? How are you doing today?
Oh man, I am excited as we have a great show, don't we?
We do. We have Jeffrey Grant back. We had so much fun last time. We had to bring him back in the show. VP of Research of Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, Jeffrey Grant. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome, man. Doing awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming back on the show. We really appreciate it.
Sure, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, as Jake said, we had an awesome time speaking with you, and we can't wait to dive.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. I didn't bring anything.
We just enjoyed your personality so much. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
So just razzle dazzle us with that.
How about that weather, huh?
We might just have to wing it.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we do that then? Well, look, you know what? Last time you were here, we really kind of hit everything with a broad brush. This time around, I thought we'd zero in on certain parts of your fantastic collection and thought we would actually start with Marvel.
Yeah, so obviously we know that you have a lot of key issues, first appearances of a lot of these characters. I know that's something you take a lot of pride in collecting. So why don't we just dive into some of your key issues? And I know you have a very special item signed by the legend himself, Stan Lee. So why don't we start with that?
Yeah, it's kind of a nice item to open up the show with, just sort of to set the tone. Because I think, honestly, by the end of this thing, it could very well be that we probably touch on most major characters within the Marvel universe.
That works for me.
we have a lot of stuff here as I'm looking around my table. But when I was a little kid, there was a bookstore in Baltimore that we went to in Cross Keys, and I would see this book, and just I wanted it, had to get it. And that is Origins of Marvel Comics by Stan Lee. And I was privileged enough to, at one point, you can see on the side here, have this copy signed by Stan Lee himself. So this I have had, the copyright on this, my goodness, is 1974. Well, that sounds about right. So a big old paperback book like this, the price on it is $6.95.
Might be worth a little more than that these days.
Yeah, if you can imagine. But yeah, this I've kept in my possession for a long time. I only got the book signed a few years ago. He signed this for me, and I also got a picture of the two of us signed. I forget where. I think I may have gotten it, the picture taken in Atlanta Comic-Con, and then subsequently got him to sign it at Dragon Con just shortly before he passed away. But he's the man.
That he is.
Yeah, a lot of people will argue about what he did or did not, or may not have contributed. You can't deny that, he definitely was a driving force in the Marvel universe, but you got to give credit to the other greats like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. And we've got some good examples of those coming up, I think.
Sweet. Let's dive right into it. I know a lot of them were from the 60s, so I'm excited to see.
Yeah, we have a lot of silver and bronze here ready to go.
Perfect.
Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So you guys had asked me about because I had themed parts of my collection within my larger collection. And some of them just kind of grow organically based on things that I pick up over time. And then I say, oh, well, this is related to that. I might go in this direction or go in that direction. But one of the things that kind of grew out was the number of titles that Marvel started publishing in 1968. So, a lot of people don't necessarily know this necessarily, but Marvel was using a distributor for a long time called Independent News. And they were owned and distributed actually by DC, which prevented them from putting out a large number of titles. They were actually very limited in the number of titles they were allowed to publish. And then the owner of Marvel in 1968 changed distributors over to a company called Cadence, and they started publishing titles just left and right, and a lot of them were character based instead of like Tales of Suspense or Strange Tales, things like that. So it really they kind of like started out right out of the gate in January with a title that kind of is a little bit unusual considering all that they published that year. The first one in January that they put out, and you'll notice that each one of most of them have this like big premiere issue stamp on it. Mm-hmm. Is a book called Captain Savage and His Leatherneck Raiders, and it's a war book. He's not Sergeant Fury, but Sergeant Fury does appear in this first issue with Dum Dum Dugan. This title, that a lot of people just don't really know about, ran for about 19 issues before they put it to bed. And actually, it's in the second issue, this is number 1, where they actually detail the origin of Hydra.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was January of 68. And then in April of that year, that's when the whole thing just cracked wide open. So what came out in April of 68 was Captain America number 100. And this is a classic cover. Anyone who collects has seen this cover over and over. So what this used to be, because it's not issue number 1, it's issue number 100, is that it's Tales of Suspense that was then converted over to Captain America. And in here, the Captain America's origins retold in the same way that it was told in Avengers number 4. And Baron Zemo is the big bad in this book, and he goes after both Cap and Black Panther. And you have a classic Jack Kirby cover. Mm-hmm. And so this was April of 68. And
that is awesome. Black Panther really looks like it's before the cape was there, and it looks like he does now cinematically. Actually, it's pretty wild. So.
Yeah, he went through a stretch with a cape. He went through a stretch where he had the mouth area open, closed, and not like a full-on cowl, I guess.
Yeah, he's like one of my favorite looking characters. He's just got such a cool look to him.
Pretty sleek. Yeah,
very much so. And then in the same month, and I believe I showed this last time with my autographed stuff, but again, it has the big premiere issue stamp on it, is The Incredible Hulk 102. And this book was actually, the reason why it's 102 and not number 1 is because Incredible Hulk went from issues 1 through 6 in its original run. This is actually a continuation of Tales to Astonish.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so you've got nice Marie Severin art on the cover, and I signed here by Lou Ferrigno, the man.
There you go.
This one features the Enchantress. It's got the Warriors 3 in it. It's got a whole sort of Thor type
Guardian.
That's awesome. So I have a question about that. So at that time, I know at one point in time, Hulk actually changed into the Hulk by the moon. It was almost like a werewolf kind of syndrome. It wasn't, based off of him getting angry. Was that around this time period, or was that prior to when this run came out?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to look that one up.
I think that's when he was more like the Gray Hulk.
He was gray,
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so that one looks like he was wearing the green. He's got the green.
Oh yeah, he's full on.
I'm glad they made that change. The Hulk out was not as classy.
Don't make me angry. No, we would have had that
line. you wouldn't like him when he's angry.
Yep.
So then, April was a big month in 68. The next big thing that came out was a one-shot called Iron Man and Submariner.
Oh,
right.
Those two.
And it's got the big old.
That's awesome.
Stamp on it. So this was a one-shot that they put out leading into Invincible Iron Man number 1 and Submariner number 1, and Iron Man is coming to this book prior to the launch of his own book, and same thing with Submariner. But our Iron Man's coming this from Tales of Suspense, 99, which is what they closed out before Captain America 100 started. And then Mariner was in Tales to Astonish 101 before coming to this book. And then you've got, classic Gene Colan, who did a lot of Green Lantern work for DC on the cover here. And the historical significance of this book, this is actually the first book that Marvel put out intentionally as a one-shot, as far as I know. So Iron Man and Submariner came out.
Very cool cover.
Yeah, and the following month, these two guys had their own book.
Oh, there you go.
There you
got
go.
Submariner #1 and Iron Man #1. And you've got Gene Colan doing the cover for this one. And his or Iron Man's origin is retold. And in Submariner #1, this is a book that has the Fantastic Four in it and retells how, Submariner was found by the Fantastic Four, that the classic sequence of art where they shave off the beard because he looked kind of like a homeless guy. I found him. The interesting thing, I've got a few Submariner books in my collection. He's a surly guy. And I tell you, he gets every single cover that I think I see with him, he's in a fight he's angry with somebody.
Always, man. He's a hothead.
Yeah, if it's not Thor, it's Hercules, it's Captain.
Black Panther, yeah.
Yeah, you look up any cover and he's in a fight with somebody.
It's funny you bring up the Fantastic Four. I totally had forgotten that's where he kind of made they've been closely aligned throughout the years. Yeah. And I guess it started there, with the whole push and pull between Namor and Sue and Reed. She's kind of somewhat attracted to him. And it's just, I guess that's where it was all set up, right? In that book right there.
Yeah. And I'm eager to see if the rumors are true and that Submariner actually is the villain in the sequel to Black Panther, because that is.
Well, I keep hearing.
That's what everybody says.
Well, I've even seen the actor from Crazy Rich Asians I've seen him being rumored very heavily to be Submariner.
Is that right?
The lead from there. They did say that
cool.
They acknowledged that in Endgame when they were talking about the flooding and all of that. Yeah, underwater earthquake. That was definitely a reference to Namor. I mean, that was the seed that was planted. So, I think he will pop up in Black Panther too.
I think he will too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, so the year goes on. It's May, and after 2 issues in Marvel Superheroes, you've got Captain Marvel #1, and among other things, this is the 3rd appearance of Captain Marvel. So. You've got appearances from Carol Danvers, the future Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. Not the first appearance, but, Gene Colan was a busy guy. He did this cover too. And the inker on this is Vince Colletta. And if anybody wants an entertaining look into the comic industry, there are a few different videos on YouTube that talk about the kind of dicey relationship that Vince Colletta had with Jack Kirby, and how many people think that Vince's inks ruined Jack Kirby's pencils.
Oh.
It's interesting. I actually watched one the other day where they actually showed the pencils versus the final product, and how he would eliminate characters that he just did not want to ink. Mm-hmm. And the detail that Jack Kirby would put in, like buildings and stuff in the background, he just completely disregarded. Jack Kirby's former assistant, Mark Evanier, who created Gru the Wanderer, among other things, wrote for Welcome Back, Kotter too. He actually, and he writes for a ton of comics. And worked for Hanna-Barbera for many years. He has many stories to tell about Vince Colletta, and I believe he's not a fan.
Interesting. Going back to that Captain Marvel cover, it's interesting to see that most heroes, that when they made their debut, as you mentioned earlier with Black Panther, right? I mean, his costume went through changes, but it remained basically the same. That costume right there is
completely
different
than from when, and really that character, if he debuted in '68, then I guess he passed away. Was it 1980? Around that time, he was really only in the run. Yeah, died of cancer. So he was really only in the run of comics for 12 years or so. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, I mean, there were. I think there were little hints to that original design in the movie, but yeah, they changed that pretty much. It went from white and green to blue and red and a little bit of yellow, I think.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I thought actually Captain Marvel ended up looking a lot cooler in the new outfit than the older one.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we can keep going. So in June, we had 2 books that premiered, neither one of them with that big premiere stamp, but they're significant nonetheless because they're both character-based books. So one of them is Doctor Strange 169, and the other one is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #1. And so Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #1, first of all, you got to give mad props. Steranko, my God, there is no one who draws like him. Trippy, Dada stuff, really just amazing artwork. That's way out there. And the first appearance of Scorpio is in this book here. So just a little bit closer.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, that is some very cool art.
Yeah, and then Doctor Strange. So this is the first time Doctor Strange got his own book. And so this changed over from Strange Tales 168. And they basically retell his origin, and he goes to the Ancient One to try to get the Ancient One to give him back the nerves and feeling in his hands that had gotten destroyed in his origin. As far as I'm concerned, this is not, the big premiere issue, but for sure, this should be.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I would have to say probably the Mac of all the 68 books. This was the one that growing up as a kid, I always kind of just drooled over. I thought the character was really cool. You just can't beat him. And we can go into more detail on him in a bit. And it's the Silver Surfer. So we've got the Silver Surfer #1. This is actually the 13th appearance of the Silver Surfer. He made a lot of appearances, obviously, in the Fantastic Four, which is where he started out. And in this book here, the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom appear, and the Hulk's in here too. Stan actually wrote this story. And you've got John Buscema doing the cover. And there's a backup story in here that features Uatu, the Watcher.
Oh, nice.
This is, you can't get more of a classic cover than this.
No.
Yeah.
I love Silver. He's so cool.
I love how Jeff is on the first name basis with Stan now. He's like, Stan,
yeah.
You might have met him twice. You got him to sign the book. I love it. It's good stuff.
But you look closely, and it's got, you see the famous Kirby dots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cosmic Kirby dots.
Oh, yeah.
Just great stuff. And then the last thing from 68 that I have, and it's not really a premiere, but I see it and have seen it in the last couple of years really start to pop in a lot of conventions and people that sell comics. And it's, I think, become significant for a number of reasons. And that is the Hulk, the first Hulk annual.
Very cool.
A really classic cover. It's Steranko. Great stuff, and it's an early appearance of the Inhumans. So I think between the cover and the Inhumans reference, I think it definitely fits in to one of the significant books in 1968. It's an iconic image, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And now that seeing that, it just brings to mind other issues that I've seen that are I know have to be specific callbacks to that actual cover right now.
Oh,
That
for
I've seen
sure.
throughout the years that have seen the Hulk in that position and not knowing. That's why I love talking to you, Jeff, because I learned so much about different things. We're literally talking to you and you're showing me as you're going through your collection. Um,
Yeah, I actually saw a Dutch version come up online. I forget where I saw it, but international versions of books tend to be slightly different. So they definitely had the image of him with, the stone title on his back, but it was slightly different, but cool nonetheless.
That's
oh,
really
very cool. Like
International books.
I had never heard of that. I pride myself in kind of knowing a little bit about everything as far as like this genre stuff. I had never heard of that one comic, the first one, Leatherneck. I've
Yeah,
never
well,
heard of that.
neither had I. And, I had put a picture of a bunch of my 68 books up online, and someone made the comment about it, and I had never heard of this thing before. But, to be a completionist, maybe it's my OCD, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to bring it in and have it part of the collection.
Well,
So
thank you very much.
1968, huge Marvel year.
Yeah, they really stepped their A game up in 1968.
Yeah.
Good gracious.
Yes. Just really, really good. I mean, yeah, think about it. Just the amount of production that went out from that company in that year, it was really a renaissance year. There are some people that are critical of it, but yeah, you can't deny what it was that they were pumping out.
Oh, absolutely. So, you touched on the Hulk actually, so this is a good segue into my next question. Last time you were on here, you showed us a little bit about Wolverine's first appearance, and we showed the giant size X-Men. Do you have anything that maybe you could fill the gaps in between those issues?
Yes, I do.
I love it.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah, right?
So, I love books that have a little bit of controversy to them. I'll give you an example, like the first Silver Age appearance of the Golden Age Green Lantern, for instance. There are 3 different books that make a certain claim. Chronologically, only one of them is right. But when they come back, I think from CGC, they're still noted as a first appearance. I'm trying to think of some other ones that are similar to that. But I think what also has come up recently is the idea of trade ads. So in the case of Wolverine, who made his debut in November of 74, I believe, in Incredible Hulk number 181. Actually, he appeared for the first time in 180 in a cameo in the very last panel. So again, there are people who debate, cameos don't count or full appearances don't count. It's the cameo, whatever. But there's just a little unique niche, I guess, to have, again, it's the completionist in me. So I have Incredible Hulk 180. I showed 181 last time. I showed Giant Size X-Men number 1 last time. But I also there are 3 issues that came out, I think right after Incredible Hulk 180, that had trade ads in them that promoted the upcoming issue of Incredible Hulk 181. And in the trade ad, Wolverine actually appears twice.
Oh, nice.
Just different poses. And one of them is basically directly clipped from the cover of Incredible Hulk 181. So the 3 books that ad was in, one of them was Daredevil number 115. And I don't know that there's anything really significant other than the fact that it has the ad in it that makes this book unique. It has, Black Widow and the Deathstalker. But it's a fun thing that if you're interested in being a Wolverine completionist, This is one of 3 things that you should be looking for. And then I can talk about another one that is really unique that I don't have, but I would actually debate that it should not be included. But I'll get to that in a second. The other one is Marvel Premiere 19 with Iron Fist. So you have the same ad in here.
Oh, nice.
And then the final one, the ad showed up again in the Mighty Thor number 229. And this is a great cover. I love that cover.
That's right? A great cover. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's quite an image.
Yeah.
Well, certainly.
The ad shows up in all 3 of these. Now, again, kind of like with the 1968 covers where I found out about Captain Savage, I did something similar. In fact, I did it twice because I knew about the Daredevil one, didn't know about the other 2. Someone told me about Marvel Premiere with Iron Fist in it. I got that one. And then I put pictures of that up with the 2 of them. And then someone came clean and said, wait, there's a Thor. So, I, like yourself, I'm learning stuff all the time. And it just, again, feeds my OCD. But in the last time when I found out about the Thor issue, someone else actually brought up the fact that I think it's, do you remember Foom? Foom? Marvel. And that was a Marvel published fanzine kind of that went out. With, background articles on the writers and the artists and all that stuff. And back in the 70s. And I can't remember whether it's issue number 2 or issue number 4, one of the 2. There was somebody who was an artist that drew what is considered a prototype of Wolverine in it. He does not look anything like the traditional Wolverine, and I would say that the powers that are described kind of in the sketch are not really who Wolverine is. So I think someone kind of just created a Wolverine character, and there is a picture. I've seen it. It's in there. It's just, it is so far off, I think, from the actual character that even as a completionist person, I don't know that I would really run necessarily to go add this to the collection on that specific character. But it's out there, and there are people who believe that it's part of his creation.
That's interesting. Well, one of the things I think you segues really nicely is obviously one of them being in Daredevil. I know he is one of the Defenders, a really good character. One of my favorite Marvel characters. He's kind of one of the versions kind of like Batman related. He's very grounded and gritty. Obviously a huge presence on Netflix, especially the last couple of years. Do you have anything specific towards Daredevil in any of the Netflix characters on TV or in comics?
Yeah, I've got a few items that are kind of fun to check out. So as far as the Netflix shows, the first thing I have, and it's actually a signed copy, I have Marvel Premiere 15, which is the first appearance of Iron Fist. And you can see across the title that it's Roy Thomas, who is the creator of Iron Fist.
There you go.
Interesting character. I think there are some people that don't necessarily like the choice or what they chose to depict someone in the character of Iron Fist. But that's for other people to debate at another time and not me. But classic issue. The other shows that Netflix had other than Iron Fist, you have Daredevil, you have Luke Cage, and you have Jessica Jones, right? Mm-hmm. Jessica Jones. I got nothing. Sorry.
Right.
However, for the other 2, and it's not that I don't want, but again, that'll be for another day to feed my completion.
All right.
So the first thing I have here is the first issue of Daredevil.
Ooh. The whole yellow suit.
Yep. I don't think I showed this the last time. Appearances by Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, You got Foggy and Karen Page, all the usual suspects.
That's awesome.
So just again, classic issue. And I was lucky enough so I get Emmy screeners. I'm part of the Television Academy. So they end up mailing boxes of screeners over the course of time so that you can watch the shows and then vote. I was able to take one of them and get it signed by Charlie Cox. Right there.
Awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah.
He does a great job as Daredevil, by the way.
Yes.
I thought so too.
I'm very particular about the type of pen that I use. I have a silver paint pen. And both Charlie and the next person I'm going to talk about here were both very fond of my paint pens and wanted to keep them, but I allowed. They're awesome pens. Am I clear enough on my OCD? I mean, good Lord.
I think you nailed it home, yes.
I think I brought it home. All right. Yeah. So the other character, major character in the history of Marvel is Luke Cage. So here's the first issue of Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, his first appearance here.
Sweet Christmas.
Yeah. Just great classic 70s stuff. And on the Netflix show, they have, there's, I think, in the, when they talked about his origin in the first season, he does wear something that is very similar to this. And they do have, according to the story, actually a very logical explanation for the chains and the middle tiara that he wears. I don't know what else to call it. I wouldn't tell him that it's a tiara, but
right.
No.
Yeah. So first issue of Luke Cage, and I was lucky enough to also take one of my Emmy screeners and have that signed by Mike Coulter.
Oh yeah.
If only he could get in shape.
I know, right?
So I have those two signed on the Emmy screener. And if I could make a segue here, the last similar thing that I have signed as far as an Emmy screener goes has to do with another Marvel Netflix show, and that is the Punisher. So kind of partnering with that, we have the first appearance of the Punisher. There's a CGC 9.0 copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 129, first Punisher. And with that, I called in a favor, and there's a friend of mine whose husband worked on season 2 of the Punisher.
Nice.
And this in and got John Bernthal to sign this for me. And it's a nice little thing. So I have all three of them kind of in the same sort of display case. They make a nice set. I would have loved to have had my Iron Fist screener signed. And I regret now, because I was actually at Baltimore Comic-Con one year where the guy who played Iron Fist actually was there, and I could have done it and I didn't think about it, or actually I just didn't plan on it. And then getting Jessica Jones to sign that one, that's, I think, next to impossible.
Right.
But I got a lot of Punisher stuff too.
Sweet. Well, I was just saying, it's a good segue into that. Before you jump into that, though, did you like those Netflix shows? Were you a fan of them? Did you watch them by any chance?
I did watch them, and I enjoyed. I thought the fight scenes in Daredevil were some of the best that I've seen.
Fantastic. I mean,
he goes down he goes down the hallway, and just there's that. There was just a rhythm to the movements. I thought was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, in season 1, I think that was like episode 2 when he was saving the drug dealers. Yeah, that was fantastic. It was like it just tracked him the whole way. There was no break.
That's great.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed Jessica Jones, the first season of that as well.
Yeah, they were good. They were good. I hope that we get the majority of those characters. At least some of them get to migrate over into the movie world. You mentioned Charlie Cox. I think he would be a fantastic if they could somehow lift that and
I've heard a lot of rumors with him in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's him being like Peter Parker's like lawyer now that everybody knows that he's Spider-Man, and being nice. And I've heard Charlie being the guy they would use. I don't know how, you hear this a million places from sites that you don't know are true, but it would be great. It would be great.
Could be him or She-Hulk. I mean, she was a lawyer too.
That's true.
Old Jen Walters. But yeah, you mentioned the Punisher. Why don't we jump into that? I'd love to see what else you have as far as
so again, like, one of my sort of offshoot smaller collections within the larger collection was the Punisher, and I decided that I was going to collect. I think I have the first 20 appearances. I just kind of wanted to track the character and see where and how the character developed, and of course, a lot of appearances in The Amazing Spider-Man, and that's where that character was born. But I was also surprised to see a couple of other interesting publications where the character ended up. So the second and third appearances were in Amazing Spider-Man number 134 and 135. And you've probably seen these covers before as well.
Well, Tarantula, yeah.
Also the fifth appearance of the Tarantula.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah, just really just great stuff. And then the fourth place that he ended up was in one of the giant size issues that Marvel put out, but it was actually specific to giant size Spider-Man and the Punisher.
That's awesome.
But then as you start to kind of go down the road in the number of different appearances that the character takes up, I mean, I would say within the first 20, there's a classic issue of Captain America where he has his gun pointed right at Captain America. There's that run of Frank Miller Daredevils that he's also in. So, I mean, the character kind of bounced around. There were 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man I had as a kid that had him appear in 2 issues where Nightcrawler from the X-Men appeared. I don't know if you remember this issue, but one in particular, they were on the tram car. I don't know what you call it. That goes from Manhattan to Roosevelt Island. Actually,
gotcha.
From the first Spider-Man movie, I think. Yeah.
The one where, I got you.
Right, where Spider-Man tries to catch the cable. It was not a cable car. I'm not really sure what to call it. But it fell off the wire, and he caught it. Green Goblin was tossed Mary Jane.
Right.
It was that same mode of transportation. How about that?
There you go.
That was a big one. Thank you. I knew I would get around there. But then the other part of the Punisher is actually Marvel ended up putting him in a few magazines that they used to publish. So the one of the earlier ones that they put him in was Marvel Preview number 2. So this is a big one, just to give you an idea of the relative size. So here's one of their regular.
That's really wide. Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of different sort of painted artwork on the cover, and it features magazine-sized stories on the inside. Another interesting. I'll get to this one in a second. Another magazine that they had that they put out, and this was done. Actually, these were published by a company called Curtis that I guess either Marvel owned or farmed out to. There's Marvel Super Action magazine.
Cool.
Now, the cool thing about this one is that within, I think, the first 10 or 12 appearances is actually a British version of
nice.
Action.
Savage Action.
Yeah, they co-opted the cover for Marvel Super Action, and he appeared in a story in this magazine too. So again, not a lot of people are aware that one of the Punisher's earliest appearances was actually in Britain,
How
published
about that?
and not in the United States. So this was an interesting one to track down. And then, the last one I wanted to show out of this collection, this, again, this is one of those things where you go online and you learn that there's something that you don't have to be completionist. And I just took this out of the bag. Watch me really. There it is. So this is a magazine that was published by Wally Wood. So if you're a fan of Mad Magazine, I'm trying to think of other things that, Wally was a classic artist that drew for comics for years. So this was his own magazine that he put out, Heroes Inc. And this is issue number 2. And this gets credited as one of the early issues for The Punisher because on the inside back cover, I'll open this up, is
Oh, what a great picture.
of The Punisher right there. So
That's cool.
that's why this gets its place in Punisher history as being one of the earliest appearances of The Punisher. And this one actually was from the collection of Bob Layton. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but that's where I got that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that's The Punisher.
Well, it's funny looking at through that stuff. Like I was introduced personally to Punisher through the animated Spider-Man show in the early '90s. So that was like how I introduced that character. So it's kind of cool seeing you go through and see that a lot of those appearances were actually through an Amazing Spider-Man issue, which is pretty interesting.
Well, you mentioned Bob. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, it's all right.
I'm just curious because I do not know Bob Layton and what that means. Do you mind maybe telling us and maybe the audience what that references?
That's a good question. I can look him up.
I thought you knew. I'm so sorry.
I did. No. I did work. I did know at one point. So Bob Layton, I can tell you right now, actually, that
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was a creator, writer, artist, designer with over 5,000 comic book credits to his name.
Okay.
Yes.
Bob's a busy man. There you go.
He was a busy man. He reinvented the Iron Man comic in the late 70s, taking it from near cancellation to one of Marvel's all-time best-selling series.
Oh, nice.
Well, how about that? Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
He did Iron Man Demon in a Bottle, where
Oh, yeah. That's a great book.
Tony Stark was alcoholic. Yes.
Yeah. It's a great book.
Something Disney didn't even want to touch.
No, they did
On a
not.
different pole.
And he was also a creator of The Huntress.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
Oh, Helena Bertolini.
So here you go. So this was one of Bob's own copies. So
That is awesome. One question to get a little off the path here that I would love to ask. Obviously, like the first issue of Spider-Man, because of its worth, would be an obvious choice. But is there a Marvel character that you don't have a first appearance of that you would love to get your hands on outside of like a net worth or anything like that?
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, I don't have Amazing Fantasy 15. I would love to have Amazing Fantasy 15.
Wouldn't we all?
Right, exactly. The closest thing that I have to anything, well, on the Spider-Man side of things, and I made sure I had this on hand because I just had a sneaking suspicion that this was going to come up. So, here's Amazing Spider-Man number 3.
Oh, that's awesome.
Appearance of Dr. Octopus.
That is incredible, man.
That is awesome.
Or shall I say, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Got the great Ditko artwork on the cover.
That is fantastic.
And likely inside as well. But yeah, I'm sure there's a ton that I would love to have. But I've got other firsts, and I've got them sitting here if you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Keep on rolling.
I love hearing these stories. Go for it.
All right. So what I also put together, I've got a stack of things kind of related to Guardians of the Galaxy. So we can go through them in I guess, chronological order. I tried, there are certain books in the Guardians of the Galaxy arena that I don't have. I don't have the very first. I think it's Marvel Superheroes or something like that has the very first, like Yondu and all those guys, the very first appearance of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. But I've got a bunch of other stuff here, and again, makes up a small kind of subset collection to the larger collection. So the first one I have here is the Invincible Iron Man number 55 from February 1973. And this issue is significant because it is the first appearance of both Thanos and Drax the Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Two of them were in here, and great story and art from the great Jim Starlin. Significant stuff. And you look at it, that looks nothing like the dude who plays Drax the Destroyer.
No, that is not even close to what Drax
not
is
even,
like cinematically.
Not even close.
It's interesting that they both debuted, both of those, I guess, space individuals or out in the universe debut in Iron Man. I didn't know that. That was very interesting. Yeah.
And then, so that was February 73. In June of 73, Avengers 112 came out. And you wouldn't think much, was going on in this issue, except for the fact that this is the first appearance of Mantis.
There you go.
Right? And nice Don Heck artwork on the cover. You've got all your Avengers there, but Mantis' first appearance is deep within the issue for Avengers 112. So this next issue is not necessarily a first appearance, but it's one that I see pop up as just kind of a classic cover to it, and it's more kind of what happens in the book itself. And considering we were talking about the differences between the Captain Marvel uniforms, here he is himself, Captain Marvel, in the newer uniform.
There you go.
Is significant. You see this one out there a lot as a major battle between Captain Marvel and Thanos.
So look how different Thanos looks there.
Yeah, and so you find Drax the Destroyer's in this. The Avengers are in here. Again, Jim Starlin, very much associated with the Captain Marvel character, did the cover, and just it's a classic cover.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Right. And then let's see. So in June of 1975, we have Strange Tales number 180, and you've got Adam Warlock on the cover. But what happens in this is that you've got the first appearance of Gamora in Strange Tales 180, and the Soul Gem, the Soul Stone, actually makes its first appearance in this book. And of course, you have Adam Warlock appearance. So a little bit of fun trivia in here. So Jim Starlin, again, associated with another character having to do with the Guardians, the eventual Guardians. He wrote the script in this and didn't have his name listed as Jim Starlin. It is listed as Sam Giltern. So it's an anagram of the letters. And he also inks the book and calls himself J.L. Mini Rats, which is also an anagram. So a little bit of trivia. Yeah. And so we were talking before the show about the Defenders, my Defenders collection. So this is one of those times where one kind of mini collection that I have crosses with another. And that is in Defenders number 28, where you have the first full appearance. Again, it's like, I think the issue before the first cameo appearance. This is the first full appearance of Starhawk. And you've got the original Guardians of the Galaxy. So you've got Charlie 27 and Martin X captured by the Badoon, and Vance Astro and Yondu also appear in this. So you've got a full battery, between Doctor Strange, the Hulk, the Valkyrie, and you've got most of the original Guardians of the Galaxy in that book. And that was October 75. So January 76, again, Curtis, the magazine company, comes out with Marvel Preview number 4, which was the very first appearance of Star-Lord.
Star-Lord.
Right? And so inside, there's some Bernie Wrightson artwork inside here, and there's a nice painted cover on the front here.
Yeah,
gray
gorgeous.
Yeah. Look how different he looks too. Great day.
Right. Yeah. Take a look. Yeah. Take a close look there.
Yeah, it looks. I would never, if you covered the title, I would never in a million years guess that's Star-Lord.
Well, he's not the only one actually that appeared in a magazine, but we'll talk about that in a second. So we're talking about like controversial first appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the most messed up one. So back in November of 1960, in Tales to Astonish number 13, you probably have seen the cover of the Giant Groot, where he's like, he was one of the Marvel monsters that they used to put in those titles.
Oh yeah.
So this is actually a really good example of that on a couple of levels. So the thing is that the Groot in that title was not the Groot. He was a Groot. So he's not the Groot that was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And actually, there have been a couple of occasions where a Groot has come back. And I think that I have after that first appearance in 1960, I believe I have the second 2 appearances of a Groot. So Groot came back with a bunch of other Marvel monsters in November of 1976 in the Incredible Hulk King Size Annual number 5. All right?
Yeah, I see him up there.
So you can see he's on there with a bunch of the other Marvel monsters, all of whom appeared, I believe, in some other Marvel comic in the early 60s as one of the Marvel monsters. And so like there's one here, Taboo down here, for example. He appeared twice in Strange Tales. But look, you also can identify that's a Jack Kirby Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Oh, most certainly.
So you've got Groot right here, or a Groot.
Yeah.
So this is the second appearance, I believe, since the first one in Strange Tales. And then, so that's November 76. The next time there is a Groot that appears is not until July of 1997.
Wow.
Where he appears in the Sensational Spider-Man. This is the flashback issue. So it's -1, not even 0 or 1, it's -1. And you have a Groot that appears in a nightmare that Peter Parker has.
Wow.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
I had no idea. So there was such a wide gap in between the appearances of Groot. I mean, he really didn't become a mainstay, I guess, until it seems like the 2000s.
And then he became the Groot that we all know and love.
Yeah, and now I will forever know him as the Groot instead of a Groot.
Yeah. Well, because they're a species.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I think Rocket referenced him in Infinity War saying, "Oh, you speak Groot?" Like he says it like there are people, not a character. And he's like, "Yeah."
Correct. And Thor says that all the people in Asgard learn the language when they're kids.
Right.
All right, so we had a couple more here. This one's a classic. You see this pop up every so often, and that's the Avengers Annual number 7. So this one is significant because it is the first appearance of the Space Stone, the Mind Stone, and the Reality Stone, and it is also the first time in Marvel history where all of the Infinity Stones are in the same place at the same time.
Oh,
that's cool.
Momentous, then, yeah.
Yeah, and it's known as one of the classic Avengers battles. This thing's got everything. It's got Captain Marvel. It's got Adam Warlock. It's got, I mean, you look at the people that are on there. It's got pretty much everything you want.
I like how they have Thanos in that like light blue, just kind of like almost like a mist or like a ghost almost.
menacing on the horizon.
Yes, he is.
very much so.
Oh, he's coming.
And again, Jim Starlin on the artwork, and I really love this cover. It pops for me. So yeah, all right. So the last two I have here, there's a major player in Guardians that we have not talked about yet, and he probably gets the most notoriety, and that is this fella right here.
Oh, Rocket.
Sweet Rabbit.
So this is Incredible Hulk 271 from May of 1982, and this is the first comics appearance of Rocket Raccoon. It is not Rocket's first appearance. Rocket actually first appeared in another one of these magazines, version of Marvel Preview in #7 that had Satana. I believe she was the sister of Son of Satan, maybe?
Oh.
I think. Anyway, that was his first place. And in this book, there's tons of Beetle references just because of Rocky Raccoon.
Oh, really?
There's Beetle references throughout. But again, a classic cover with good old Rocket popping out there.
That's so cool.
And then the last one I have on the Guardians front here is the Avengers number 257, which came out in July of '85. And this is the first appearance of Nebula. And she is introduced to Captain Marvel in this issue for the very first time.
That is incredible.
Yeah, good stuff.
Man, I mean, your collection is just so amazing. And like I said before, I learned so much. And I'm reminded, too, anything from just the fantastic, from Namor's, from fantastic to Namor's first issue to the horrific Daredevil's yellow costume. I mean, but no, I mean, and really for me, you've got so many great issues that some of them I remember going through and perusing through at my uncle's house and things like that. So I just love talking to you and learning so much and just being reminded of so many great memories as well, Jeff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, before we wrap things up, I know you have one more thing to show of the big green guy, or the big guy, as they call him in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., of Hulk and Red Hulk. Before we go, we got to let you show that off real quick.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I went to a summer camp up in Maine, and I sent my own boys to summer camp in Maine, and my then wife and I went to go look at some of the camps before we sent the kids. And we went to this one camp in Maine called Camp Winnebago. And as we kind of toured through, it's very rustic. There's no electricity. These kids basically are dirty and happy and have a great time over the summer. They take great care of the kids. I don't mean to say that. Any case, we're touring through the bunks, and I saw in the back of one of the bunks in huge white letters, it said Jeph Loeb, JEPHLOEB. I think it was 1968, 69, something, giant painted letters. And I'm looking at this name and I'm saying to myself, how many Jeph Loebs could there possibly be?
Yeah, really.
And so Jeph has written for comics for years. He most recently was the head of Marvel Television, and he's actually responsible for the deal that got those shows on Netflix to begin with. So at the time, through work, I was actually working with some folks over at DC, and I had taken pictures of the wall while I was there. And so when I got back, I said, you're never going to believe this. What are the chances? And I sent the picture, which I wish I had, but I don't know where it is. I sent the picture to my friend at DC, who then forwarded the picture to Paul Levitz, who was president of DC Comics at the time. And, certainly if you are familiar with anything having to do with Legion Superheroes, he was the guy. In addition to the giant book that he wrote on DC a few years ago. Any case, my email with the picture got to Paul Levitz, who in turn forwarded my email to Jeff Loeb. And the next thing I know, I have in my email inbox an email from Jeff Loeb that said, hey, basically something to the effect, hey, by the way, yes, that was me. And not only that, my grandfather went to the same camp when he was a boy, which I did not know.
That's awesome.
Send me your address. And I did. And he sent me 2 books, one of which I have here. So this is a signed copy of Red Hulk by Jeff Loeb. And you can see this was back in 2008, so it was a while ago. The other book, he actually signed to the camp, and I sent it to the camp director with the intention that the book would go in the camp's library, because they have one there that has books in there. And so my sons went back to be counselors ultimately. And one of them realized that over the years, no one saw this book, at least not in the library. And I think he ended up one day in the director's office and saw that the director had stashed it away so that it wouldn't get beat up in the library, which I appreciate.
That is awesome. What a story that is. I mean, what are the odds of that? I mean,
I know.
You have the hookup, my man. you have friends in high places. So obviously I don't even know really what to say. Thank you so much for showing off, more and more of these spectacular issues. We haven't even got to DC yet, so I know that's coming on the next episode. But
I haven't got to DC yet. My God, you know what? We didn't get to the Silver Surfer. We didn't get to the Fantastic.
We're gonna have to do a whole episode.
Wow, we missed.
We'll do Marvel Part 2, and then we can, or we'll do DC. We've got so much to talk with you about.
I know.
I hope
we can do.
We're
gonna have a Polka Dot Man episode here at one point. But no, thank you so much. It is absolutely mind blowing and truly an honor to see all these issues. So thank you so much for taking the time to share all that with us.
Jake and Lee, it is my pleasure.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching World's Finest. Again, my name is Jake Fogg with my co-host Lee Lawson. We appreciate you checking out the website and all of our content. You can listen to us on Spotify as well as Google Podcasts. And as always, check out the website, www.comiccollectorsguild.com. Until next time, guys, keep hunting.